and welcome to another episode of 5 Minutes with Freed. I'm your host, Michael Freed. I'm a litigation partner in the matrimonial and family law firm of Berkman, Botker, Newman, and Shine, with offices in New York City, Westchester, and Long Island. And today, my special guest is Merril Hoge, who's a former NFL running back, as well as an on-air commentator, best-selling author, and also an international speaker and advocate for various causes. So, Merril, welcome to 5 Minutes with Freed.
Michael, I'm looking forward to the 5 minutes.
All right. So, Merril, you've worked as a motivational speaker now for over 13 years. What led you to become a motivational speaker?
Ironically, I was challenged to do that sitting in a chemotherapy chair. It was the furthest thing from my mind. And I agreed to writing the book, which was my first book, Find a Way, and to sharing the message by a friend who had challenged me. And what I told him, I said, listen, I'll write the book and I'll share the message. But Charlie, I'm more interested in surviving. If I survive, I'll do it. And honestly, after I said that, that's the last thing I ever thought about that book or being a speaker. And then a year later, he called me and he said, remember that promise you made me? I said, I remember the promise. So there you have it. So it came from sitting in a chemotherapy chair, one of the most devastating moments and times in my life, and has really evolved into hope.
Right. Wow. So can you provide us with an example of a story that's inspired you?
Yeah, I've got many. But I think one that probably inspired me the most at a critical age when I was a kid was a story I heard. It was actually Walter Payton himself saying it. But I had heard, and this is around the 70s. So I have to paint a picture of 1977, back in the 70s when all this happened.
Right.
You didn't have the piece of glass. You couldn't do what we're doing today. All right. You didn't have ways of finding out information by clicking a button and Googling somebody. You had to go to the library. And that's about the only way you could expand your knowledge on anything you were looking into, or you ordered tapes. And it was actually a tape that I bought, and the tape was on Walter Payton. He was putting it out. It was called Winning in Life. He was going to talk about a variety of things: charity work, family life, and how he trained. So when I was a kid, I only cared about how he trained. I was interested in anything else. And I got the tape. I was actually scrolling through it, and it came to an interview process I didn't know existed. And the interviewer, the first question they ask him, what makes you better than everybody else? Now, he'd just become the all-time leading rusher in the National Football League. I don't assume everybody knows who Walter Payton was. But at this time, he was considered the greatest player to ever play in NFL history. And they would always say this about him: he's not the biggest, he's not the strongest, and he's not the fastest. He's just the best. Now, that's confusing as a kid because it seems like everybody you play that's bigger, stronger, and faster is better. Right. So I'm like, how does that guy, the best in the world, against the best in the world? And he said something as profound as I've ever heard a human being say it. After he was asked what makes you better than everybody else, he just paused for a second and he said, I want it more than they do every day of the week.
So listen, Merril, what's the best way that somebody can reach you, and if they want to have you do a motivational speaking engagement? What's the best way we can reach you?
The really best way would be merrilhoge.com, and it's 2 R's, 1 L. So it's Merril Hoge, Hoge.com. Altogether, merrilhoge.com. My ancestors never spelled either one of my names right, so now I have to always do that. It's kind of like Merrill Lynch, but it's not 2 L's. It's not like Dodge. It's like it's without the D. So it's Merril Hoge without the D and just 1 L versus 2.
There you go. Well, listen, Merril Hoge, we have now come to the most important part of our show, and that happens to be the question of the week. So, Merril Hoge, this is your question of the week. You have the ability to access a time machine and transport back into one moment of your life. What moment would that be, and why?
If there was one time, and actually I used this, it became a great growing experience for me, but I was a free agent with the Pittsburgh Steelers. I wanted to stay in Pittsburgh, actually. The San Francisco 49ers had tried to trade for me 2 years once Bill Cowher took over because I just didn't fit in the type of offense that was being played there.
Right.
But the trade never took place. Now I became a free agent. Now I have a chance to go elsewhere. I knew the 49ers would be a team that came after me, which they did, but a team that was more aggressive was the Chicago Bears, which surprised me. Well, I went to both teams. When I went to San Francisco, at that time, the salary cap had only been 2 years in the system. The 49ers had never had a salary cap, so they were like caught with handcuffs. They couldn't even run minicamp because they only had $200,000 left to execute certain things. So they couldn't even run minicamp because they didn't have money to run minicamp. That being said, I went there. George Seifert was the head coach. Mike Shanahan was the offensive coordinator. Gary Kubiak was the quarterback coach. And I met with all of them. And I remember when I went to leave, they told me, hey, listen, we can't sign you right now. We would really like to sign you. But before you sign anywhere, just give us a call. Just at least give us a call. I'm not going to bore you with what transpired, but there became a real heated moment with the Steelers where a guy named Tom Donahoe at the time, the GM, he had made a decision that he was going to move on from me for his own personal reasons. And I let emotions of anger now start to move me. And the Chicago Bears were going nuts that I went to the 49ers. They're like, they call my agent, like, what's he doing? I thought we had a chance. And they start making a deal that you can't pass up. Right. So within all these emotions, I told my agent I'm a Bear without calling the 49ers. The 49ers won the Super Bowl that year.
That's right.
And doesn't mean that they would have been able to sign me or they would have said, hey, listen, hang in there, we'll sign you. But the reason I do that now is I don't know because I didn't make that call. Mike Shanahan told me to make that call, George Seifert, and I never made the call. And I just, now I wander in that. I don't let myself wander. I just use it actually as a growing thing going forward. But I would have loved to have known that answer because you never know what course that would have changed in my life. But I mean, that's why I very seldom do that. When I actually asked the question, I was like, I don't do that. I've never done that. I'm like, well, if there was one that I would pick, that might be it, to know what that answer might have been.
Well, I'll tell you that is a great answer. And Merril Hoge, you have said it all. You are motivating people one day at a time. And I want to thank you for being a wonderful guest on 5 Minutes with Freed.
I appreciate it, Michael. Thanks for letting me be a part of that 5 minutes.